Hey, Christopher McClure here from Welcome to the Shift Show, where we bring spirit to bear on trending issues. And today's episode is called From Shit to Shift. Um, so there's been this supposition, just with the title of Welcome to the Shift Show, there's this supposition that um, that things are in a chaotic state and that there's some kind of progression, some kind of evolution that we are going through as a species. And um, we've talked about this, we've talked around it. I don't know that we've ever really addressed it dead on, and so I'd like to do that today. Just kind of address it dead on. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and like I usually do, I'm going to use the ancient Enneagram to help organize this topic. And so, first of all, when we talk, let's talk about this idea of shift and what that actually means. So, in my perspective, you've heard this probably from a lot of different people over the course of several decades going into the future. We are in the process of shifting from the third dimension through the fourth dimension into the fifth dimension. Um, that's what this shifting is about. And what that means is that we're moving from an identification with matter, with material, with substance, through a more kind of emotional, identification. Two, fifth dimension would be more of an energetic kind of identification, and that energy, you could call that the energy body, and that's there's various names for them: the pranic body, the rainbow body, but that is and that body is it's a preformation uh, body. It's a field of preformation. In other words, it's what it's the blueprint of what actually shows up in the material realm. And so it kind of makes sense if we identify with that energy body that we're going to have more uh, maybe we're going to have more, we're going to be more fulfilled by what actually gets materialized if we identify with the energy body. Okay, so point two, if we look at the two words shit and shift, um, there's an F right here entered into. So it's like I'm thinking of the F word. um, I'm thinking of the word fuck, and what fuck means. Actually means to merge. And I think it's a valuable way of looking at this. That right now, being exemplified through the pandemic is this extreme sense of polarization that's going on in terms of uh, humanity. That because of fear, people have polarized into um, viewpoints, and those viewpoints with any kind of with any kind of um, strong one way, there's always going to be the opposite of that. There's always an equal and opposite reaction. So we're in this state of polarization, and what we have to do in order to shift. In other words, what we need to do to get out of this material kind of um, lockdown um, is we have to merge the poles. We have to hold the poles so that what comes up between the two poles creates something. It's in the Jungian uh, sense. When you hold the tension of the two opposites, a new consciousness is born, and that's part of what's happening in this shift. Um, there's different ways of looking at this polarization. And one way of looking at it is that we have what I'm calling the persona, what we like to think of as kind of our best self. It's just that when we have a best self that we think of, we tend to want to block out everything that doesn't agree with that, and everything that doesn't agree with that is basically the shadow. And so this process of merging, right, of in a sense neutralizing the polarization, is coming to grips with our shadow. And so that brings us into the realm of selves. That we, within any person, within one person, within myself, there's certain selves that that we could call. I'm borrowing this language from voice dialogue, um, but there's internal family systems uses something similar, same concept, which is that there are certain selves, there are certain parts of myself that are primary. In other words, I'm very conscious of them. I want to be identify with these parts of myself, and they tend to run the show. But like I was saying with polarization, there's always an equal and opposite reaction, and that's the disowned selves. And the disowned selves they're more in the shadow, and they're usually uh, the way that they have an effect is they it's like we're dragging along this big weight. There's like this big weight of unfulfilled desires, of unfulfilled selves, and and they don't allow us to manifest what we think we want, because they're not being paid attention to. They're not being honored. Um, so in this process of polarization that's going on in society, there's that you could very easily get into the mindset, the reaction that those say I was identified with of the vaccine, and that everybody should get vaccinated. Um, uh, well, there's going to be all those people who are unvaccinated, who for whatever reason they feel like that's not the choice that they want to make in their lives. Um, so the element of trust comes in here. I mean, it comes in both on a personal level, but also on a collective level, which is that we have to believe in wholeness. Whether it's I have to believe that all the parts of myself add up to something which is greater, right? The sum is greater than the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. That it adds up to something greater than what I think, than my primary selves think would be the best combination. And it's the same thing collectively, that we have to trust that these people who are way on the other side of the spectrum, who have a different viewpoint, that they hold something valuable too. They have a piece of the puzzle of wholeness. And this puzzle of wholeness is this is what we're assembling right now. And we're not going to shift, right now. That the shit of this situation is that there's a bunch of contention. If you look at the overview, we're doing great. It's like there's all, even though this is really strong over here, and this doesn't like this over here, and this is really strong, they still exist. Like this doesn't, in a way, this doesn't exist for this part. This is like in the shadow, or this is being it's being rejected and denied in this part. But trusting that it's like last week I did an episode about collaboration, and it's like in collaboration you trust that when you work with somebody, you trust that the result, if we both agree that the result is good, then that result is going to be better than the result that I would get on my own or that other person would get on their own. And that's the agreement that we need to make here, in order to move from shit to shift. Is we need to agree and we need to trust that the collaboration between all these divergent parts, even though they feel, like, oh, those are the crazies over there, even though that there's a part of us that is denying that in ourselves, and we're projecting that denial on that other group of people, that other group of people actually hold a valuable piece. And another one of the polarities that comes up, in this situation is, of course, masculine and feminine. That there's masculine ways of doing things. There's feminine ways of doing things. There's masculine ways of being, which are more in the doing sense, and feminine ways of being, which are more in the being sense. And that it's actually a combination of the two. The two in balance is what is actually wholeness. So then this point, this is a word that I think comes out of the Jung tradition, and I've heard this recently from a woman. Her name is Stacy Hartman. Syzygy is the word. Syzygy. And what this refers to is this notion that in order to manifest something, you have to be willing, to truly manifest something, and to do that with alignment with Source, with God, with the universe. This woman, Stacy Hartman, calls it Gus, God, universe, Source. In order to do that with alignment, to manifest something, you've got to be willing. In order to manifest something, you've got to be willing to experience the opposite of it. So in order to manifest the mansion in my life, I've got to be willing to have the experience of living under a bridge, and what that would feel like. I've got to be, because otherwise, that polarity, like we were saying here with polarization, the polarization is, it's always going to pull, the opposite's always going to be in the picture. And if the opposite is not being experienced, then it's going to be pulled like a weight, and I will never get to be in that mansion, because I haven't allowed the possibility in myself that I could have nothing, and I could be sleeping, have no house of my own, and be sleeping under a bridge. So that's the idea with Syzygy. So with Syzygy, it's like you take like the thought that's just like, oh, I don't even want to go there. It's like, um, like maybe we're never going to shift. Maybe we're just going to, like, uh, we're gonna go extinct as a species. Um, well, what would that mean if we went extinct as a species? You know, well, that would mean, let me see, what would that mean? Well, there wouldn't be very many of us left. I mean, um, you know, a lot of us would die. Okay. Well, what would that mean if, what would happen then if a lot of us died? What would happen? Where would I be in that? If would I be one of the people who died? And okay, so if I was one of the people who died, what would that mean? Well, I would, I would lose my individuality. I would, leave. I would leave this body behind, and my spirit, and so this, of course, gets into our more personal views about what happens when we die. But my spirit would go to a place that's, I believe that the essence of creation is oneness. So I would go back to a place of oneness, and so and what would that mean? So I'd be back in this place of oneness, and it probably would feel pretty good. Feel a lot better than this contention, and 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 so what? So in that state of oneness, uh, I'll just ask, okay, so what's next? So what's next? Um, and for me, the thing that's next for me is like, oh, but I want to play music. So it's like already I'm coming back from that oneness or that nothingness, you know, in with what I really want to do, and that it's like a reset that happens. So that's I think that's what I'm pointing out here is that shift, in order to move from shit to shift, we have to neutralize the polarities by becoming familiar with our disowned selves, and embracing our shadow, and being willing to experience the opposite of what we really want. And when we do that, we reset, and we align. Basically, we align with Source, with God, with the universe, and we become whole. And then what comes out of that is a natural expression of Source, of the universe, of God. So I'm going to stop my share, and hopefully, I'm Christopher McClure, and this is Welcome to the Shift Show. Today's episode is From Shit to Shift, and hopefully, this vlogcast, gave you some ideas, or it made you think, wait a minute, I don't exactly agree with that. Please put it in the comments, and let's keep this discussion going. Thank you.